sector is clear.
Give us everything we got! All wings!
Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a full breakdown of our rankings of the Star Wars movies. So this does not include Clone Wars or any animated content. This is all just theatrically released live action films. Do you have anything you want to say before we get started, Frankie?
Hashtag not sponsored by anything, but we are looking for a sponsor.
Yeah, we are. Hopefully by our dad, EA Boss.
Oh, I hope Poppy does.
Please. Alrighty. So I broke mine into 4 tiers. The bad tier, the okay tier, the good tier, which I call naturally good movies, and then the best. The best of the best. I could watch them twice a day best. You know what I mean? So without further ado, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first and drop our number 11?
Um, I was thinking that like I would say one and then you would say one, and then
Yeah,
we
back and
kind of
forth.
go on from there. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So as my number 11th, I have Rise of Skywalker. This movie had such an upside, and I mean, was an exciting movie, but because of how it's supposed to close out the series and it left more questions than answers, I felt like this movie in itself was just dysfunctional. It had some good moments, but in general was pretty cringe, especially because it's supposed to close out the series.
I can agree with that, and it is also in my number 11 spot, just because it felt really rushed. Even the movie, like when it first started, was
Hmm.
already very rushed and not very well explained, in my opinion. And like you said, it left a lot of questions, and yeah, it
And
could have
it
been very good, and you could have just had another film later released to wrap up the entire story the way that it was, meant to be and supposed to be.
Here's the other thing. If they would have had one general direction with this or one director throughout the whole process, I would have liked it more. The guy who did Last Jedi, excuse me, I think it's Ron Williams, um, or Ryan Johnson. I don't know. Regardless, the director for The Last Jedi, I didn't mind The Last Jedi, but it was also a different like kind of approach. If they would have had the same director, then this finale could have been great if it was like J.J. Abrams from beginning to end, or vice versa. So, because this is a finale, and I am a little more critical of finales, this is the worst movie.
I agree.
Alright, do you want to go first and introduce your number 10?
Number 10 is Attack of the Clones. I just found it very cringy, hard to rewatch and not find yourself on your phone. It's one of those movies where I'll watch it to watch the whole series. It
I
has
agree.
good moments, but at the same time, it's just kind of hard to watch. A lot of the acting was just not cared for, in my opinion, and it could have been much better.
I agree. Actually, my number 10 is also Attack of the Clones, believe it or not. Uh,
We're
very
just gonna
easily.
find out we have the same list.
Part of the reason why Attack of the Clones is my number 10 and not 11 though is because it fits better in the scheme of its trilogy. It connects everything and it has one general focus. It's building up towards that last battle. And it was trash. The acting was cringe, the script was kind of bad, but at least it had one general focus. That's why it's better than The Rise of Skywalker in my opinion. It set up the Clone Wars. It set up the Clone Wars TV show really well. It set up that climax of Anakin changing, you know what I mean? So I think it set up a lot of stuff. It was a terrible movie, but at least it fit better in its trilogy than Rise of Skywalker did.
I can agree with that statement, yeah.
Okay, number 9. This is where we might disagree. I have The Last Jedi. Now, oh, this is not gonna be good. The reason why I have it at number 9 for me is just because, as I said, a dysfunctional trilogy. Um, This was the odd duck. This is the one movie that didn't fit with the others, and I liked how it brought a different version of Star Wars. This movie is unlike anything Star Wars we saw. Clone Wars is nothing like the Clone Wars trilogy is nothing like the original trilogy. This, if it was all Last Jedi style, I think I would have liked it more honestly, versus all set with the J.J. Abrams. And I think Last Jedi, I like the style of it, but because it was the odd duck and because they decided to be so ambitious in the middle of the trilogy, it really pissed me off, honestly. So that's why I have it at my number 9.
Um, I can agree with that. It kind of just felt like they tried to introduce so many characters, and the passing of Carrie Fisher kind of just, you know, with the rest of the movie using CGI, kind of just ruined the movie for me.
They
You
had
know,
the
and then
opportunity
kind
to
of
kill her and decided to
yeah,
bring her back with
exactly, and then they
stupid
pulled out
force fight.
the whole crappy story of, oh, she always had the Force, even though that it was how it was in the comics and
Hmm.
everything. But like at the same time, you could have just let her memory stayed the way that it was. You know, you didn't have to throw that extra little thing in there to, make her fit in or make the next
Make the
movie make
story keep going.
sense.
Yeah. At that time, I would have even been more happy with a delay of the movie and take a full rewrite and write her out of the story. You know?
Exactly. Or, just even like have her die and then in Rise of Skywalker, just have it half of what it was, and then have her meet a mentor somewhere in there, and then have the ending of whatever the next film would have been called. You know,
Yeah. And I would have been okay if they would have just sat with Rise of Skywalker, but I mean, because of here's the other thing I feel about because they decided to bring J.J. Abrams back, it was a whole different look. They should have tried to split that into two movies. It's kind of like Infinity War
yes.
and Endgame. If they would have stayed with the whole same director, three movies was fine, but they needed to switch up that trilogy, unfortunately. I'm gonna introduce, or do you want to introduce number 8 then?
Ooh, number 8 for me, sadly, somehow is The Force Awakens.
Oh, do you want to expand on that?
Now, now, yes, it introduced a lot of good characters, and obviously it was the start of all the prequels, but it, something about it is just it's cheesy in a way, and it kind of just like it forces a lot of jokes on you. Same with The Last Jedi. It kind of just like overdoes the jokes. It's trying to make kind of a dark time very happy,
Mm,
and for a movie that is supposed to be set in a dark time, you have a overruler that's making everyone miserable. Yes, it's good to have like people that bring up the mood, and but some of it could have just been taken out because a lot of it was repetitive in a
yeah,
way. And if you ask me, it was just a repeat of New Hope. I mean, I'm sorry, but it was
yeah,
Starkiller Base, Death Star, the way they destroyed it. It was
yep.
different, but yeah, you know,
I'd say
it,
I
it
fully
just
agree with
felt
your
like
take.
it was very inspired by New Hope,
Hmm.
especially how they introduced, the character.
And I
You
would have
know,
been more okay with it being more like A New Hope if they were trying to say something about history repeating itself and something about the Skywalker legacy, but how they ended it was trash.
yeah.
By the way, I'd like to say 9, 10, 11 are my bad movies. This is where my number 8 is actually an okay movie. I tolerate it. I'll rewatch it every once in a while. My number 8 is actually Phantom Menace. I feel like the acting was still kind of cringe. There was a few plot holes that I didn't like. Padme going after a young version of Anakin always threw me off, even as a kid. So I think those are my issues with the movie. But I think the final climax fight for the space part with Anakin, with the Gungans, with them infiltrating the palace, and then the duel of the fates and the fight between Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Maul were its redeeming factor. And I think that the whole finale to this is possibly one of the better ones in Star Wars, actually. but everything leading up to it was slow, draggy, and eh. I know, a little different. My number seven is actually The Force Awakens for every reason you said. It's kind of a repeat, but here's the thing. I think I liked it a little bit because it had its differences, but sometimes I'm just happy with the nostalgia, with the fact that I got to go to the theater to see a Star Wars movie. I thought that was so cool because I'm too young to see any of the other ones really. So I was happy with being captivated, and I really liked the little twist at the end where you thought Finn in the trailers was the Jedi and they kind of put it out more on Rey. I liked it and I liked the female lead. But as you said, it was too much of a repeat. It felt too much like A New Hope, and that was where it became a little more frustrating. What's your number seven?
Yeah, we kind of switched places here. My number seven is The Phantom Menace. And the only reason why it is Phantom Menace is so yes, I did like a good portion of the movie, and the fact that they brought Darth Maul back into the animated series and then Solo
Hmm.
as a little teaser, and then they took him into Rebels where he died. It, it was good for that part, bringing back an old character that we saw very little of, and we got to understand that character a lot more, and we got to do something with him, which was really fun. Being on the dark side for a change, seeing how he might think. And yeah, one of the bigger parts of the movie was the whole Gungan scene and the infiltration of the palace. And I didn't like the whole Padme and Annie story when I first saw it when I was a child. I didn't really like it. I found it very
Uncomfortable.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of just like,
That's
doesn't
why
seem right.
I think this movie just lands on the okay meter. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna go home and say this is one of the like it's a masterpiece. It had its good and it had its bad, right around okay. All right, so now that's actually the last okay movie. From here on out are good movies. And my number six is you're gonna hate me, A New Hope. I found this movie to be boring as a kid, and for its time, it's a phenomenal movie, and it created the whole movie. That's why I put it up a little higher. It created a villain in Darth Vader, created the whole trilogy in Star Wars, so you got to put a little respect on its name. Um, but it's slow, it's boring. I mean, you have to be, but I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna sit up here and lie and say, oh my gosh, this movie was the best movie ever. No, it was slow, it was boring, and I mean it had to be that way, but I'm not gonna say it's the best either. So I think that number six is generous. I do say it is a good movie due to the fact that it had a solid finale and it had the build of a Star Wars movie and it had Obi-Wan Kenobi and they were able to create a whole Star Wars series based off of him in the Clone Wars and I really liked how they introed it, but I also feel like it's very boring and slow.
Yeah.
So what's your number six?
Return of the Jedi.
You son of a gun! God dang it! You're lucky this is a kids channel. How? How?
Personally, yes, it
Oh.
was good, but again, building another Death Star, but just adding a different villain this time, it was just. Mm. Yes, it had
Ah.
a lot of great moments, the Ewok fight, and then there was a space battle in the same time, and it, it was very good, but bro, trust me, when you said New Hope, I felt the same way. Only I have my emotions in check, because it's your opinion.
You're right, dude. I was just not ready for that.
Neither was I.
You're
Um,
like, what?
but
Nah.
personally, I just feel like for the other movies that I have on my list, well, actually, no, I skipped one. I'm sorry, my list is very like scribbled over. I changed it so many times.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Number 6?
Whoops. Number 6 is Han Solo, or just Solo.
You're not making me happy over here, Frankie. God dang it, dude.
Once again, I just enjoyed other movies more because it's a personal taste, you know?
Yeah.
Yes, Han Solo was great. I love the fact that we got to see the more smuggler side of, you know, the Star Wars universe, and we got to see a really good origin story.
Mhm.
Like, really, it was. And seeing how Han and Chewie first met, and then seeing how Han became the man that he was in The New Hope and throughout the rest of the series. But also, when I went and saw it in theaters, it kind of just like, I don't know. Like, I
It
had
was very small
trouble
scale.
sometimes, like, yeah, it was very small scale, and just sometimes I found myself kind of just like thinking of other things because I didn't really, like,
I, I
catch my
got you.
interest in it much.
I got you. Okay, so then my number 5. Actually, no, your number 5 is Return of the Jedi then?
No. You want me to go again?
Yes, what's your number 5?
I feel like I'm gonna get beaten up next time we see each other.
Very possible.
Rogue One.
Okay, no, I can accept that one. I can accept that one.
Okay.
If you would have said Empire, I might have actually stopped this podcast, drove over to your house, and done something I would have regret. Go
Uh,
ahead, expand. I mean, go ahead.
so the reason why it's there is we got to see a little more of the early phases of the rebellion and the very beginning of the New Hope. You know, we saw how all that began,
Hmm.
which, I personally like. It wrapped it up very nicely, and it filled up a pretty good gap on, the plans of the Death Star, how it became, and it also tied it up in Battlefront 2
Yeah, and Battlefront
with
1
its
actually as
story,
well. Yeah.
and Battlefront 1. Um, it was a good movie. There was, good jokes. It wasn't very cheesy, but it was also very down to earth, kind of gritty.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Um, but I guess the reasons why I didn't like it is, you know, as much as I could rewatch it, I won't,
Hmm.
just because I feel like it's very simple of a movie.
Yeah.
But
No, I'll
as
give you that.
simple as it is, it's a very good movie, but it's just very simple and hard to rewatch over and over again.
I'll
And
give you
like
that.
you said, you rated your list off of how much you could actually rewatch it and enjoy it.
Hmm. No,
So
I agree. All right.
I'm taking
My
that into account.
my number 5 is Solo. I gave it a little more respect than your number 6. Um, personally, Han Solo has been one of my favorite characters since I've been a kid. I've really like kind of connected with him. I feel like he's very similar to my wit, my personality. Um, but I feel like they did Han Solo, Chewie, and Lando all justice on their story. I liked how they all brought them together. I really appreciated the upbringing. I liked how small scale it was because, quite frankly, these guys hadn't made it big yet. And once they did make it big, they got into some trouble with the big guns. I like the finale where everyone's kind of double crossing everyone, and it was one of those unexpected, expected finales where you're like, oh, well, can I really trust him? And then clearly you didn't, but then you didn't know that everyone was going to double cross everyone, and it was just like no trust for anyone. It was fun. It was a really fun ending. I really like the villain, Darth Maul playing and pulling strings in the back. I'm hoping they do a Darth Maul series built off of this. And I would actually like to see a 2 where he starts to do some Jabba's runs. I think that'd be kind of fun. But that's why I mean I think it is very small scale, so that's why it is number 5. And I'm a sucker for the big fight scenes and the big everything and big scale finales. So that's why this is number 5. But it was still a great movie. And I mean, as I said, 6 and 5 are good movies for me. So I thought it was really good. My number 4 is Rogue One. this movie cracks the top four because it felt like Battlefront, old school Battlefront, just brought to life, and I really appreciated that. Now, when I say Battlefront, well, at the time Battlefront 1 was out, and I was playing it, and I was like, oh my god, it's like that. But it also took pieces out of my childhood Battlefront, where it was violent, it was scattered, it was messy, there was like no organization to the fights, it was explosions everywhere. I really appreciated it, especially the big final finale. I really liked, as I said, the small scale villain, and I think what was the cherry on top was the Darth Vader hallway scene. Just at first you're like, oh well, we're gonna have to appreciate a movie with no Jedi's, and then bam, Sith comes out of nowhere, Darth Vader, and you really got to see what it would look like Darth Vader in today's age of CGI, just going to town on people. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I really do hope that we see a little more of like that area. I want to see when the Empire was just starting to get big and a little more organized, and Vader actually going out in the field and not just sitting in a Star Destroyer. I feel like I would really enjoy movies or even just a TV series.
I would love to see a Maul TV series that Vader made appearances in that happened after Revenge of the Sith. That would be amazing. Kind of like Mandalorian production too, where you know they're not afraid to go big.
Mm.
All right, what's your number four?
Oh boy.
Number four, three, two, and one are my best top tier movies, so I cannot complain. Maybe the order I'll complain, but not too much. Don't worry.
All right. New Hope.
I can respect that. I think it's a little high, but go ahead. Why do you say New Hope?
Well, one, it started off a great trilogy, and personally, like, yet so simple, but like, you know, like I said, it started off a great trilogy, and even though that when it first came out, a lot of people didn't enjoy it, a lot of people didn't understand it, and it left them with a little more questions than answers on what the film was actually about.
It
This
kick-started the Star Wars.
generation
Yeah.
loves Star Wars, and you know, like, there's no reason why it should be any lower or any higher.
I'll
Yes, some of the graphics and acting was a little off, but for what the film is, I really like it, and it is one of my personal favorites.
I'll give you that respect. And one, I guess, angle I didn't see is without A New Hope, we wouldn't have Empire. Without A New Hope, we would never have had Revenge of the Sith. Without A New Hope, we would never have Battlefronts or Rogue One or anything. Like, let's say A New
Exactly.
Hope didn't work out, we would not have any Star Wars content. Imagine that.
Exactly. That's why it's so high.
I'll give you that, but as a movie, trying to go rewatch it, it's hard.
Not
It's
for me.
slow. That's fair.
I'll I'll watch it.
All right, and what's your top three, or your number three, I should say?
Oh, okay. How did I switch this around? Okay. Number three is Return of the Jedi.
I
Now, I
respect that.
already, of course you do.
I thought,
Um,
hold on, I thought you had Return of the Jedi at number six no, it was number six. I thought you had Return of the Jedi, so I was a little pissed. I'm
I
not gonna
have
lie.
like five different arrows pointing in like five different directions, bro. All
Got
right.
you. All right. And why do you have this as a number
Um,
three?
so number three, like I said, space battle, and then we had the Battle of Endor. In my eyes, yes, it was kind of like just why would you build another Death Star, but yet have it protected by a large moon? Like, it's kind of like iffy on,
The
you
story.
know, yeah. I mean, yes, it had a good plot, and it introduced Emperor Palpatine as the big bad villain. Um, but I guess my only problem with it is that it ended there. It felt like there could have been another movie after it, but
And
it
not
stopped there. it kind of
Force Awakens is now what we deserved as the movie after.
exactly. I feel like we could have easily gotten another movie with Emperor Palpatine, actually having a proper plan instead of Bill. Oh, well, all we have to do is plug the hole in the giant circle, and then everything will be fine, right? No,
Yeah, I got you.
like
All right.
you know,
My number three, I think we have the same top three, but it's definitely arranged differently, is Revenge of the Sith. Now, this movie was beautiful. I mean, from start to finish, the action was flawless. I like the space battle that they were flying into the ship, and then I like that whole scene where they're going after Dooku. And then you have General Grievous thrown in there. And then they're crashing a big Star Destroyer down into Coruscant. Then it gets a little slow, but then Obi-Wan goes after Grievous and makes for one of my favorite fight scenes of all time when he was on the lizard's back as a kid. That was one of the coolest things ever, by the way. Um, and then you go ahead and start to see Anakin's turn down the path, which I think this movie is definitely better because of Clone Wars. Clone Wars brought out, especially the last season, some things that made me appreciate this movie a little bit more. But the big finale is one of the best in the trilogy. It is the best in the trilogy, but in the series alone, it could be one of the best. The fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin, and there were stakes on the line, and emotionally, it hurts you to watch. And then you also got to see Emperor Palpatine in his prime fight against Yoda in his prime. That was also pretty sweet. So, in general, this is a good movie. The only issue I have is there were slow moments in the middle, and the acting was on fire, but the script at times was a little cheesy. That's all. So that's my number three.
I can agree.
All right. Do you want to crack your number two first, or should I crack my number two?
Um, Jedi. Okay, so we're on number two.
Yep.
All right, number two for me, Revenge of the Sith.
Okay.
I agree with you a lot on this one, and one of my favorite parts is the battle versus Yoda and Palpatine, and then we have Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Mhm.
But also, how can you not enjoy the memes that came from this movie? I mean,
No, that
like come on.
definitely. I agree. And I think people are so sleeping on the Yoda versus Palpatine fight. That was one of my favorites because Yoda just walked in and just threw his guards to the side like they were nothing, and then like looked at him. I was like, oh my god, no, that gives me chills right there.
He did disrespect him pretty bad.
Yeah, he said, "Nah, fam, you ain't guarding this man. I'm about to have a good conversation." And then I mean the Mace. Oh my gosh, we even forgot the Mace Windu fight die scene was also a phenomenal scene from beginning to end. So
There was also a pretty good meme off of that one, yes, I agree.
yes, yes, I'm too weak.
I'm too weak to die. So
What
do
have I done? Oh yeah, the memes are great, but all right, my number two is Empire Strikes Back. I'm not disrespecting this movie because anywhere in the top six is good. That means I like the movie. Number two means it's it's the second best Star Wars movie ever made, and I think it was right when Disney Plus came out. My dad threw it on the 4K TV, and I think it was remastered. It looks great. The animation, everything held up. CGI, just the filmography held up over all these years, and it's one of the best Star Wars looking movies in my opinion. It doesn't look old at all, almost at all. I think it had one of the coolest fight scenes with Vader and Luke that lasted a long time. It went from Middle Bespin down and kind of through the tunnels. I really enjoyed that, and it set up for one of the biggest reveals in movie history that and before you knew Anakin or Darth Vader was Anakin, and that came to a surprise to everyone that watched it at the time. Honestly, one of the best movies ever made, one of the best stories ever, and they also let the bad guys win at the end, which threw a whole new level of respect for me. I didn't think it was possible to beat this movie, but of course I'll have a really good reason on why it did. But in general, I think this movie was just a beautifully made movie, and I could watch this. I could sit down and watch this anytime, any day. It's that good. All right. Number one, should I get mine in first, or do you want to talk?
Well, I mean, I feel like we kind of already know what our number ones are, because, I mean, I've been paying attention to your list, so I assume you've been paying attention to mine as well.
All right, so then why don't I talk about Return of the Jedi real quick? This movie just did everything right. First of all, kids, close your ears, but Slave Leia was top tier, okay?
Jesus Christ.
Phenomenal. No, if we're being fully like jokes all aside, the Rancor
Ladies and
fight.
gentlemen, please remove your small children out of the room before he talks any
No, no, no,
longer.
no, 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 no. We've already passed that. But the Rancor fight was great, and it had actually good humor. It wasn't like they were forcing a joke. It wasn't a joke. When the guy came in, the big guy came in, he just started crying. As a kid, I could not stop laughing. That was a really, really funny moment. And
Because
then
you're a psychopath.
and then R2D2 launching Luke's new lightsaber, which looks gorgeous, one of my favorite lightsabers in history, over to Luke, and then the fight over the Sarlacc pit was amazing. I feel like Boba Fett died too early, but we're about to find out in Mandalorian he didn't actually die. So excited, and this could even make this movie even better. And then Jabba's death to Slave Leia. One word describes that. Hot. Hawt. And then, I mean, the Battle of Endor was amazing, and the Ewoks capturing them, the one of the coolest scenes in my opinion. In like, I'm saying cool little additions that didn't carry it, of course, but Leia and Luke riding the speeders, being chased down. Come on, that was pretty top tier. And then the finale, I think, is the greatest finale in Star Wars history. It closed it out really well, and I feel like I'm excited to. I I agree with what you're saying. I want to see where they would bring this, and I want to see what Luke is going on after this, and I wanted to see it pushed back a little further. But considering the time it was made, the finale is beautiful. The fight between Darth Vader and Luke is one of my favorite fight scenes of all time. I think it is my favorite fight scene. And then the redemption arc with Vader turning because he was seeing his son tortured. Gorgeous. And it made sense. It wasn't just a Kylo Ren at the end of Rise of Skywalker. He had no reason to turn, and he turned anyway. There was almost no reason for that redemption arc. This, you felt really redeemed by Darth Vader, and it just came full circle, and he was the one to balance. That's why I just appreciate this movie so much.
Huh. I'm not saying it's a bad film, but I'm also saying it could have been a lot more. I also get a lot of your points.
Yeah. I think it's just because this is, this trilogy was Star Wars at its peak, and I think we can both agree on that considering two of these movies are in the top three. It was Star Wars at its peak, and we just want more of that Star Wars. I think that's all what's the issues coming out with you. That's all. Do you want to talk about Empire for a second?
Oh, I only have a second.
I know.
Do you
I
have
talk for.
90 minutes? Um, well, I guess to explain it the short way
No,
is
take your time.
one, it had my favorite character, to be honest, Boba Fett. I've just always liked him. He's just a great character. I'm very sad that we didn't get a lot of him in the original series, but the fact that he's coming back in Mandalorian, I am so excited for that, to see him again in live action and not in the animated series as a
Mhm.
kid. I'm just very happy. And the fight scene between Vader and Luke is just amazing. I love it so much. Just so many,
Gorgeous.
like, it was very well shot, all the colors and just, blue versus red, such complementary colors clashing in a dark room. That was amazing. And
And the
then,
orange background in there too. I'll give you that.
yes, yes. And then the battle on Hoth was just amazing. I loved the ATSTs slowly closing in on the rebels as they fight for their life. I always loved that part in Battlefront 1, how you
Hmm.
could play on that map and it was kind of like the same scenario. I
Hmm.
loved it so much, and yeah, I don't know. It wasn't very like heavy on the jokes, which I liked.
Yeah, you don't need it to be. That's what everyone to today's day and society thinks you need. But I think you and I are on the same page. Jokes are not the key of a movie. So, but I agree with you. I feel like Empire is one of the best movies ever made. I think it's just that I like Return of the Jedi for my own reasons. But thank you guys all for stopping by. If you guys enjoyed this podcast, I have our full list on right now. But if you enjoyed this, let us know. Leave us a like. I think our next thing will be some Mandalorian talk for the next season, as that is actually right around the corner. But stay nerdy. We'll talk to you later. Adios.